today's lesson, we're going to be learning again about two-point perspective. We looked at my first two assignments, so if you haven't watched video 1 or video 2, don't jump here to video 3, go back and watch those first 2 videos. We're going to work on using a bird's eye view, a worm's eye view, a street view. Then we're going to start thinking more creatively about the next steps of our project. So let's go ahead and get started. On this practice, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be creating 3 different cubes from 3 different perspectives. One floating up in the air, that's called a worm's view. One in the middle, that's going to be looking straight on, and a street view maybe. And one in the bottom, that's going to be called a bird's eye view. And the idea is a worm is looking up, a bird is looking down, and a street view, you're standing right in front of it. The painting that we've been looking at is Calibot's, and we know that it's in the Paris streets on a rainy day. So he's been standing in the street, that's a street view. So let's get started. First thing I'm going to do is make a horizon line or horizontal line. 1 vanishing point, 2 vanishing point. If you have a ruler, this is a great time to use your ruler. At any time in the video, if I'm going too fast, feel free to pause, rewind. In the top corner here, I'm going to make a vertical line. In the middle of my paper, I'm going to make another vertical line the same size. And at the bottom, I'm going to make another vertical line the same size. So I go 1, 2, 3. Now we're going to turn these 3 vertical lines into boxes, or cubes, sorry. So the top of my vertical line, I'm going to make a diagonal line to my vanishing point. The bottom, a diagonal line to my vanishing point. So what I did is I just made a diagonal line into my vanishing point to the closest vanishing point. On this side, I'm going to go all the way to the other vanishing point. This would really help if you had a ruler because it's such a long line. Okay. Then I'm going to do the same thing with this right here. Top of the vertical line to 1 vanishing point. Bottom of the vertical line to another vanishing point. Top of the vertical line to 1 vanishing point. Bottom, other. And last down here. I have to fix this line because I'm not using my ruler. Okay, perfect. So now I have my guidelines with the exception of this line I don't need. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to grab a different colored pencil so that you can see this a little bit better. If you have a eraser, just erase your guidelines. But first, what I want to do is trace my vertical line. I'm going to make another a parallel line next to it. So I want the width of my box to be about this wide. So I have this box or cube, trace my guidelines. And suddenly I have what you can see as my cube. Now this is the hard part of the cube. The hard part of the cube is getting that worm's eye view. So again, if I'm a worm, and the worm is looking up, I'm going to see the bottom of this box. And to make that happen, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to go from this corner, I'm going to crisscross. This is a confusing part. So this side, I was going to the nearest vanishing point, but if I'm going underneath it, I'm gonna go ahead and crisscross. So it goes to the opposite. So I take my pink colored pencil here, and if I wanted to shade at the bottom, you could shade the bottom, you don't have to though. Okay, so now I have my worm's eye view. Voila. Now I'm going to do is do my street view. Street view is actually the easiest view. You've done it already with Calibot's building, but we're gonna go ahead and do it again. So what I'm gonna do is vertical line, then slide over, vertical line, then slide over, vertical line. These lines are parallel, they do not cross. And this, I'm just going to trace my guidelines. And that is as easy as this gets. This is gonna be the easiest cube. Now, this bottom one is the same thing as the top one. So some artists, what they do is they flip over the paper and just recreate it. I'm gonna leave it like this so you guys can see how you would make it. Again, I'm going to go ahead and take a vertical line, put it next to my shapes. I'm gonna trace my guideline, get my pink pencil here that I'm using today. Perfect. Okay, now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and crisscross again. So this corner is not gonna go to this vanishing point like these other two did. This corner is gonna go to the other vanishing point. So I'm gonna grab the other vanishing point, go all the way across, and this corner is gonna go to this vanishing point. Take my pink pencil. Now this one's called a bird's eye view because if I have a bird, so let's just put a bird poking its, kind of looks like a chicken. A chicken doesn't fly though. But let's say I have my bird and my bird is looking down. That's going to be my bird's eye view. Okay? So really quickly, we had 3 cubes. We had a worm's eye. We're gonna call this a street view. And we're gonna be calling this bird's eye. All right, this is the first part of your assignment. Creating 3 cubes. If you're feeling inspired and you wanna make some more additional ones at different heights anywhere on this paper, that'd be awesome. Feel free to do that. Show me that you understand this really well. The next part of our assignment is we are going to be getting back to our 2-point perspective city street view. So let's go ahead, let's get started. For the second part of your assignment, you're going to need a blank sheet of paper. You're going to need a pencil, preferably one with an eraser, or if not, have an eraser nearby. Got a pencil here. I also got Aquaman. He's an eraser. He can hang out with us for a second. And then use a ruler. Now, some of you at home don't have rulers, so I'm going to show you today an alternative way of using a ruler. I'm going to use this box. I think this box will be pretty easy. It's got a nice straight edge on it, so I don't have to worry about making my line straight. I can use this box. So if you have all those things, let's get started. Now, on this assignment, what we're going to have is I'm going to have a couple other people do it as well. Today's assignment, we're gonna have Mr. Williams attempt it as well. So then when we touch base next week, we can talk a little bit to Mr. Williams, interview him. We'll put him up on video chat so we understand what worked, what didn't work, and see how his art came out to be. So let's take a look, start off. First thing we've done this all week, is nice and easy, a horizon line or horizontal line, separating the sky from the ground, okay? Right about the middle. It's okay if it's up a little bit higher. Mine is. Start off with 1 vanishing point over here and 1 vanishing point over here. So I got 2 vanishing points. And actually, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my ruler or whatever you're using as a straight edge, and I'm going to put it in the middle of my paper. And I'm going to make a vertical line. The vertical line is going to be just about the side of my building. Then I'm going to make a horizontal line on the top, horizontal line on the bottom, and another vertical line that would connect those two. So just make sure that those vertical lines are parallel, which means they do not cross. Okay, so I have a rectangle in the very center of my paper, 2 vanishing points because I'm doing 2-point perspective. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead, like we've done, and I am going to go and put from one corner to the other. Remember, if you haven't done the first 2 videos, it really would benefit you greatly to do those to understand this portion of the project. Without that, what's going to happen is you might be a little bit lost, especially if I'm going too quick. Those first 2 videos are more step-by-step examples on how to do this. Voila. All right, so the first thing I can do is I can erase out my horizon line. It's right in the center. I don't see it anymore, so I'm going to erase it. It's helped me and it's done its job. Okay, the next step is we are going to, before we add in windows, we added in windows on our last assignment. Before we do that, we're going to go ahead and make a street corner for this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and make a horizon line at the bottom. And I'm gonna go and make a vertical or a diagonal line to there and a diagonal line to my corner. So what that's going to end up being for us is that's gonna end up being a sidewalk on the corner of our street. So I went back into these two vanishing points. Remember, when we're creating this, everything has to go into those two vanishing points. Without those two vanishing points, it is no longer a 2-point perspective. If there's only one of these, that means it's 1-point perspective. Okay, so let's get the sidewalk lines on. Now, the sidewalk lines, a lot of artists make mistakes, and the way they make mistakes is they make their lines going diagonal, which would mean if you were standing on the sidewalk, you would slip and fall into the street. You want them to be horizontal. So remember, horizontal means straight across, like our horizon line. What I do with my ruler is I slide up onto the sidewalk, and I go and make 1, 2, slide up, 3, 4, slide up, 5, 6, slide up, 7, 8, slide up, 9, 10, and I slide a little bit less each time because I would like for my lines to be closer together. So what you'll notice is as I'm moving back in my picture, my lines are getting closer and closer together as they get closer to the vanishing point. It's another thing that some of us really have to make sure we can do. And over here, you can, depending on how you want to cut the sidewalk, I'm going to leave it open like this for a second. And the reason why is I'm going to actually put something on this front sidewalk here. So I'm just going to leave this like this. Leave this like this. All right. Now, tricky part. Adding in those windows. We talked about last time if you had a ruler, how that would look. This time what I'm gonna do is since I don't have a ruler, I'm gonna make up my own measurements. So I'm gonna go down. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna use my eraser. So once there, right about there. My eraser length 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 right about there. And I'm putting these check marks in. These are gonna be very important. So now down here, this is gonna be my door. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and if you have your ruler, please use your ruler for this part, straight edge. I'm just gonna start to freehand it. And the reason why I'm gonna start freehanding is so the video speeds up for you. But at any point, if the video is going too slow, feel free to fast forward. At any point, if the video is going too fast, feel free to stop, pause, rewind, erase, start over. Those are all things that would help out quite a bit. What I'm gonna do now is make very light guidelines across. And now, from these, I'm gonna go ahead and make sure my vanishing point is touching those lines, touching the vanishing point, and add in these lines. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. All right, so now I have all these lines going into my vanishing point on this side. So as you can guess, whatever I do on this side, I'm gonna be doing that same process on this side. So let's go ahead and start that as well. All right. Making sure again, it's on the check mark of my line and my vanishing point. Voila. All right, so got the general idea here. It looks very similar to our first two assignments about Calibot's 2-point perspective. But for this assignment, what I want us to do is I want us now to use our creativity as artists. We're gonna do something on one side is a futuristic building, and on the other side, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create some kind of a monster kind of breaking into this side of the building, okay? It could be comedical, meaning it could be something funny, or it could be something that scary to you. I don't know, it's up to you. You're the artist, be creative in this point. So one thing I'm gonna do before I get started here is I'm gonna go ahead and I'm going to make a vertical line. Now, the important thing is, when I make my vertical line all the way down in that corner, and I erase all those guidelines, I don't need all those guidelines. What I need to put back in there is I need to put back in there my horizon line. And the reason why is this: there is still ground behind this building. And now that I've taken that out of there, I can put something in there if I want it. I could put another building in. It's really up to you. Adding more buildings makes it a little bit more complex. I'm gonna add a billboard on one side during this project, so it's up to you. Now, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and start putting those windows in. We talked about this last time. So remember, it's vertical, 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 vertical. And if you use a ruler, they're gonna be a little straighter. Mine are moving around a little bit. I'm gonna go ahead and go vertical, 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 vertical. And I'm gonna trace my guidelines. And I have my windows in there. Now, one guideline I can see right away that I'm a little bit off on is this one right here. So I'm gonna make this window a little bit bigger. There we go. All right, so I have my windows, and remember, it's the same idea as the sidewalk. As the windows go back, they get closer together and smaller. Closer and smaller are good words when we're referring to two-point perspective. It helps create, show space, or the illusion of space rather, not actual space. So I have that. Now, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna jump forward, fast forward, until I have all my windows done on my building so we can move on to our next point. All right, now let's get into breaking apart this building, adding in some more details. This is where the creative part comes into. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my eraser and I'm just gonna start destroying some of the upper part of the building. And what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna go ahead and break part of my building just like that. So areas that there was a window, what's gonna happen is I'm not gonna have a line on the top if it touches where it breaks. So this is a nice broken side of my building. Now, with two-point perspective, like we looked earlier with those cubes, things that are the back of or the underneath of a shape, we're gonna have to see a crisscross. So for this crisscross, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have to go to this vanishing point over here, this vanishing point over here. Now, you don't have to make the full line if you don't want to. If you can figure out exactly how it would hit that vanishing point, that's fine. And the reason why is, actually, let me zoom in a little bit for you guys on this side. What's gonna happen is I'm gonna mirror this, and mirror that. And what's gonna happen here is that's gonna help be my wall. And you can shade very, very lightly the corners of your wall. Okay? It's a little detail that actually ends up making it look a lot nicer. What I'm gonna do here too is I'm gonna run some cracks through my building. To make it look more like they're breaking apart. You can even crack your windows. This is where you get to be creative, okay? So that's one side. And if I want to actually break apart the other side, just so you can see what the other side looks like, I'm gonna break apart both of my sides. You don't have to break apart both of your sides. You can pick to only break apart one side, but I'm gonna go ahead and do both. So what I'm gonna do again is crack. I'm gonna go all the way up to the top there. I kind of jagged, hold my pencil tight and kind of let it bounce around on the paper. Get that eraser. Get rid of those details. Now, one thing we talked about before is if there's a window, for instance, like this window right here, because I have that window, I'm gonna go ahead and gut out that little spot. So it's gonna go into that window. Same thing right here. I have another window right there. So, and another window right there. I went through a lot of windows on this one, I guess. And one more window right there. All right, so now what I'm gonna do is the exact same thing I did on this side. I'm gonna take my ruler, I'm gonna go to the other vanishing point from the top corners. So again, top corner to the vanishing point, top corner to the vanishing point, a little corner to the vanishing point. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and mirror in. One thing I wanna note to you guys as well is in the back of the building, closer to the vanishing point, that wall space would technically be a little thinner. One thing that I haven't been very consistent with, but that's exactly how it would play out. So I don't have a ton of areas that I actually need to do this shading into. So I'm gonna go ahead and shade very lightly though. Perfect. Okay, so now I have another side of my building that is opened up. I have now broken apart both the sides of my building. Again, looks better if you go through and make these cracking lines, especially when there's like angles where it comes. And then in the back, the cracking lines would be shorter and smaller because it's getting closer to the vanishing point. But now what I've done is I have, oops, there that goes. I have created a building that I have destroyed on both sides. So adding in those 2-point perspective, remember the crisscross, especially in the backs where these buildings are. And that is where you're going to end your assignment for today. So just to go over what we learned, again, we talked about 2-point perspective, meaning 2 vanishing points. We talked about scale, size. The windows in the front are bigger. They're smaller as they get back. Lines in the front are longer, smaller as they get towards the vanishing point. Space, space is getting reduced, or we're subtracting it as we get towards our vanishing points on the sidewalks, on the windows. Then we went ahead, we put a door on, we put a little sewer on there. This part right here is an option that if you're interested in, please email me and I will create a separate video for that. I'm not sure that you guys want to do that, but let me know. Then on these cracking, the breaking, the destruction of the building, we are going crisscross with to our opposite vanishing points and adding in a tiny bit of shading. So this is Street's Eye View. This is a 2-point perspective video. Next week, I'm gonna show you how to add in your monster and kind of finish this up. And I look forward to seeing you guys then.